The more that Attorney General Pam Bondi and the Trump administration try to get everybody to stop talking about Epstein, the more suspicious things seem.
As of this moment, the Epstein files are still not here. They were here. They were on a desk, and then they weren't on the desk, and then they said that they don't have the files. Apparently, a gentleman named Jeffrey Epstein, who was sex trafficking hundreds of people. There were hundreds of victims of this, but apparently acted alone. There are no files. And then maybe tomorrow they will have the files. And it turns out all the files were written on with lemon juice on paper. Oh, they just had to hold them up under the light. But to watch Pam Bondi have to go from, and it's the same that happened with Bongino and Patel, to go from conspiracy theorist to reasoned expert is just chef's kiss. Oh, there's a minute missing from the prison videos. They had security camera footage from the prison, but there's a minute missing from 11:59 to midnight. And that minute, man, you can fit, how many conspiracies can you fit on the head of a minute? Like, you can fit them all. And watching Pam Bondi have to go, I get it. Minute is missing, but it turns out there's a very simple explanation, and it's somewhat innocuous. So it's not the sinister motives that everybody thought it was. So I'm sure that will take all the air out of this conspiracy, because I've just explained to you there's a very reasonable explanation.
First of all, it should have come out a long time ago. Professor Dershowitz wanted it out. And by the way, he is one of the best attorneys in this country. I know him. I know his wife. That's a great family, and they've been dragged through hell on this. I want to know why AG Garland and the Justice Department are so quiet on this tonight. They're out there labeling parents domestic terrorists, yet they're saying nothing about this. And these documents were so slow to come out. Human trafficking is a multi-billion-dollar business in this country, and Jeffrey Epstein is dead, and Ghislaine Maxwell is in prison for 20 years where she belongs. And if people in that report are still fighting to keep their names private, Sean, they have no legal basis to do so unless they're a child, a victim, or a cooperating defendant by some chance against some potential case against Ghislaine Maxwell. And I think Mark Garagos, as a great criminal defense attorney, will back that up as well.
Why do you think the feds went along with this? It just doesn't make sense.
Well, ask the feds. I can tell you why I think they went along with it.
Yeah.
We had a very, very strong federal defense. It doesn't matter how many young women he may have had sex with in Palm Beach. The government had to prove that he transported them in interstate commerce, and they couldn't do that. They had a very weak federal case and a very strong state case. So the deal we arrived at was he would plead to a state charge, serve 18 months, and would not plead to the federal charge. That's very common. The job of the criminal defense lawyer is to get the best deal he can for his client. The job of the prosecutor is to do justice. The job of the judge is to make sure that justice is done.
Right.
But the job of the defense lawyer is to defend the client to the best of his ability in all ethical ways. I did that. I'm proud of it. I will continue to do that. I've done it for 55 years. That's my job. Would anybody want a lawyer who would not defend them zealously? Of course not.
This is not an opinion. This is a fact. I have seen, remember, I was accused falsely on the Epstein, and ultimately I was completely cleared. The woman admitted that she may have mistook me for somebody else and withdrew all of her lawsuits. And so from day one, from the day I was accused, I said I want every document out because I knew every document would prove I was innocent. So let me tell you, I know for a fact documents are being suppressed, and they're being suppressed to protect individuals. I know the names of the individuals. I know why they're being suppressed. I know who's suppressing them, but I'm bound by confidentiality from a judge and cases, and I can't disclose what I know. But I hand to God, I know the names of people whose files are being suppressed in order to protect them, and that's wrong.
Just out of curiosity, without names, are these politicians, business leaders, both?
They're everything. And let me tell you, a lot of them are, at least one of them is somebody who was accused. Others are accusers. And the judges have said, if somebody calls themselves a victim, we're not going to give any information about them. But they may not be victims. They may be perpetrators. So we don't have information about false accusers. And we know there have been many false accusers who have accused innocent people for money, and those records are being deliberately, willfully suppressed.
At the very least, the Judiciary Committee should be demanding that the Epstein files be made public. That is a bipartisan agenda. At least I thought it was. And if something has changed, please let me know. But I thought that we were all for that together, and we should move on that today. Thank you, and I yield back.
Mr. Ranking Member, I thank you for your testimony and fundamentally disagree with you on everything. Without objection, all other opening statements will be included in the record. And we're now going to introduce today's...
And please elaborate if you would, Mr. Chairman. I'm happy to hear it.
I don't want to hold up the whole hearing, so it would take a considerable amount of time.
But on the question of child sex abuse, look, you could say that we've got an epidemic of this across society. We've got it in schools. We've got it in universities. We saw it at Ohio State. We saw it at Michigan State. We saw it in the Boy Scouts. It's affected a lot of different religious organizations and churches. And so by covering up, they are just reproducing and spreading the conspiracy theory and the anxiety about why this is happening. But you don't have to blame some shadowy deep state. Donald Trump and Pam Bondi are the ones who've got the power to release the Epstein files. So they're the closest thing we've got to the deep state right now, and they should go ahead and release all of the Epstein files and put an end to this.
Look, they've been promoting some wild conspiracy theories about what's on there. We don't know what's true and what's not true. And if there's nothing to implicate Donald Trump, then release the files. What's the problem with releasing them? That's what they've been demanding.
By constantly teasing the release of the Epstein files in the run-up to the presidential election, Trump set an expectation that there would be action. And look, we know that all along the way, he's been super cagey when discussing Epstein and Maxwell specifically. It was really suspicious, but his base was constantly fed the line, we must release the files, so they didn't focus on him and his potential guilt. But now, as the cover-up gets weirder and more aggressive and more just strange, his role becomes more central. And on the topic of distractions, the Republican Party has accused a lot of people, mainly trans people, of being groomers. But now, in their need to protect the actual groomers, who you're not allowed to know the identity of, the house of cards is falling apart. If you enjoyed that, then make sure that you never miss another video by subscribing. And if you want a little more, consider hitting the join button and becoming a member. So you're probably wondering, why would I do that? Well, when you do that, you get access to bonus content that I make every single week, and it's a lot of fun. You get custom emojis and more. If you join at tier 3, by the way, you even get access to a monthly member hangout with myself. And you'll get all that going forward, but you'll also unlock years of the back catalog. That is literally 100 or more bonus clips and top 10 lists and debates and more. So what are you waiting for?